Episode 5. Parley at the Spillway. Part 1. The Hearing at First Light. By the time the kettles click, the evidence table looks like a small market for bad ideas. Clear polish bottle in a bag, the brush hair bent like it has a memory. The filed harness clip from the animal cupboard, edges smoothed in the wrong place. 3 fishing line knots glued tidy to crate slats, each with a dust ring around it in Busi's photo. A printed tag travel photo. Neat person chalk box lifted from a board and placed on a bowl of tomatoes. A handrail elbow image with arrows and "don't grab" scrawled the size of a shirt. The tap loop from laundry, dried and coiled in a petri dish, and printed in black and white, the board line that has become a spine. Tag travel trap. The staff room has been turned into a court without the costume. Khumalo sits in the center, jacket on, slippers that make no sound. Miss Hadebe on her right, stone dust on cuffs. Nandi left impefo unlit but in reach. The clerk ready with forms. Musa at a side table with a microphone the size of honesty. On or off, no volume for embellishment. 4 prefects stand along the wall as witnesses. 2 kitchen aunties sit with arms folded and eyes that have seen eras. Students pack the doorway until a raised hand from Busi rearranges them like furniture. 3 ranks, aisles open, no leaning. Rules for this hearing, Khumalo says, voice plain. No magic, no singing, no comment from the floor. If you feel the need to perform, I will let you finish it outside in the rain. A small puff of laughter escapes someone and dies quickly. The rain hasn't decided whether to stay. Naledi, Khumalo says. Naledi steps forward like a queen in a corridor, which is to say, she makes the light behave by not acknowledging it. Hair perfect. Ankle wrap neat enough to sell to a chemist. Uniform correct. Expression pleasant. She puts her hands together as if she is about to pray, and then doesn't. Do you understand the items on the table? Khumalo asks. I see them, she says. I understand that I have been accused of a collection of household mistakes. I have nail polish, like many girls here. I don't own fishing line. I did not file any clip. I suggested student welfare hours because morale is a safety metric. I never intended harm. Intention is a spoon, Nandi says. We are talking about knives. Busi lifts the photo of the tag on the bowl. This is my chalk. It was moved from a board I wrote on to a bowl. Not a small mistake. A trap. A knife. Naledi doesn't look at the photo. I can't be responsible for every hand that saw my posters and made a poor copy of my leadership. You can be responsible for leading with knives, Miss Hadebe says, and for teaching hands what counts as clever. Musa reads a summary, crisp. Incidents, times, names. ZZ latch polish smear, handrail knots, tap loop, tag travel, filed clip. Witnesses, backdoor auntie, laundry duty, 2 first years who saw a please keep clear sign covering not a mouth. He does not look like he likes any of it, which helps. Closing statement, Khumalo says. Naledi's mouth softens, not lips, corners. If we make safety a theater, we will break this school, she says. People need leadership. They need to see prefects doing something. The rules have turned into graffiti. You are letting children write on walls instead of teaching them to stand up straight. The result is panic. My posters were order. My hours would have reduced unsanctioned pairing because people would feel seen. I don't move tags. I don't tie knots. I don't file clips. I don't open shoots. If you want to make me a villain, make me one that can be proven. She looks at me when she says villains and at KWANDA when she stops saying the word. Khumalo doesn't blink. Thank you, she says, as if someone had just handed her a pencil. She turns to the aunties. You too. Backdoor auntie. I have cooked in this school when you were learning to tie shoelaces, Sisi. We don't need theater. We need you to stop telling my drains to forget their place. She taps the polished bag with a fingernail. And to stop making shiny where chalk should hold. And The second ante. If I see that sign again over not a mouth, I will make my own hearing outside with a wooden spoon. That is my statement. Recorded, Musa says, very small. Khumalo looks at Naledi. You are not on trial for being disliked, she says. You are being weighed for outcomes. Outcomes, near fatal IO in compost. Zizi nearly down a chute. 2 handrail traps, a tap loop, move tag, a candle set up to be permission. Your prefectship is revoked permanently. You are banned from kitchen, laundry, animal handling, and the registry room. You will have a mask bead fitted to your bracelet. No glow chasing, no pairing permissions of any kind for the remainder of the term. You will report to Earth for doors and drain service under supervision, 3 hours daily. You will attend room ethics with Nurse Nandi. You will carry chalk. You will write not a mouth 100 times where Busi points until your hand learns the shape of humility. You will not own adhesives, polish, or string while you live in this school. You will not be alone in corridors during surge nights. Violate once, suspension. Twice, expulsion. If you wish to contest, you may do so in writing and I will read it while I drink tea. There is no applause. That is the respect we owe outcomes. Naledi keeps her face level. It isn't nothing, the work it takes to do that. She looks at me the way a mirror looks, then at KWANDA like a person checking the weather. Understood, she says. She does not ask for the polish back. She does not look at the table again. She accepts the mask bead from Deflect, the plain matte one that eats yellow before it can bloom, and snaps it onto her bracelet herself. Her hand doesn't shake. That is also a kind of training. Dismissed, Khumalo says. Not from school. From the idea that your feelings are law. Naledi walks out straight-backed without spectacle. That will be the spectacle for the next week. On the quad, the notice board carries the hearing's outcomes in square letters. Underneath, a second sheet, typed, stamped with the school crest. Drone wardens perimeter mapping at 11 o'clock and 15 o'clock. Ground rules. Moon flat. No songs. Sun mug on call. Water smoke low. Earth mark anomalies. Witness present Mthembu. Do not throw stones at the drones. Do not bluff them. Do not invite them indoors. Students cluster to stare at the sketched silhouettes of the wardens. Squat quadcopters with iron collars and salt loops zip-tied around their frames. A little brass bell fixed to each arm. Hadeda gray shells, names stenciled in white. Nandi 1, Nandi 2, Hadebi 3, D-Clerk 4. Jokes that aren't jokes. The side of each drone bears a hand-painted not a mouth in Busi's ugly letters. They're ugly, Thandi says, approving. They're not muffins, Busi says. They don't have to look nice. De Klerk runs the briefing on the main steps like a man explaining spanners. Hadida class quadrators, weighted to ignore small weather tantrums. Each has an iron band to carry charge into ground if Impundalu get experimental. Salt loop to discourage the petty. Each arm carries a pouch of iron filings that they spill in a pattern if they detect a moving string. We will walk behind them and read the spill. If you see filing snake or braid, you do not touch. You call Earth. Noise? Thandi asks. They hum at 400 hertz. You'll flatten below it so the panel doesn't start a choir. No songs. Got it, Thandi says, fingers already itching. Why the bells? A second year asks, pointing at the dinky brass bells tied to each arm. To warn animals, Sipho says, and the kind of people who think flying things are birds with new ideas. Khumalo looks at me. Witness. Ledger will hear the map if you hear the map. I'll keep it small, I say. I feel the iron under my jaw nod like a cat being polite. KWANDA takes a ground kit that looks like a picnic basket and is full of ways to say no to lightning. His sun crack shows a thin new branch near the wrist. The skin around it looks like it has accepted a tattoo it didn't choose. He doesn't hide his arm. That is its own rule. We lift at 11. Nandi 1 and -2 rise like ugly birds with jobs. Bells tinkle, ridiculous and perfect. Thandi sets her flat underneath their hum until birds decide this school is not an instrument today. The quadcopters sweep the roof rails, the panel seams, the flag halyard cleat that tried to be clever last night. They seed iron filings in a dotted line wherever they taste pull. Over gutters, along the parapet, down the wall in two places that make Busi swear softly in Zulu and write no twice on her knuckles to save time. Read that? De Klerk asks. Conduit echo, Busi says at the first spill, where filings align like hair combed deliberately. Not a prank. A path. We follow Nandi 2 along the east face. Filings sleet down at letterboxes, then stop, then start. At the corner nearest the bright room, the drone sensor ticks 3 times and dumps a cupful of filings all at once. Iron glitters on the paving in a pattern that makes the hair on my neck do the small soldier thing. See? Thandi murmurs. I see it. Not letters. A knot. Not a knot you tie with rope. A sun pattern. 4 rays, then a break, then a ray turned inward. The way you teach something to eat itself so it won't eat the street. It's in the filings, like a memory. Who laid that? Sipho asks. De Klerk stares at the pattern too long for a man who loves only numbers. This isn't yesterday's child, he says. This is 10 years old, maybe more. KWANDA doesn't crouch. He looks down the way men look down at graves when the headstone uses the wrong dates. The sun crack along his arm hums in sympathy. Once, then cools. He does not reach for me. We are doing well with prices in the daylight. Log it, Khumalo says, cutting the air with her hand. We do not decide what this means on paving. We log, we sweep. The drones circle the admin block and then the spillway fence at the bottom of the hill, where the river pretends to be obedient before it remembers its childhood again. Nandi 1 hovers at the chain link, bell chiming once. Filings drop at the top rail, hang on the wire, then slither down the mesh and slide under the fence, drawn like iron filings draw to a magnet in school videos. The pattern they leave is not a knot and not a pipe. It is a line with weight in it. It heads for the concrete apron where the spillway throat opens its square mouth when it rains hard. Then, the drain at our feet coughs 1 green bead and then 3, neat, like punctuation. I lift my eyes from the filings. The river doesn't speak like men. It writes. In slime, in beads, in the way concrete decides to take stains. On the face of the spillway lip, letters appear where wet meets dry, not chalk, not moss, something in between. Parley at dusk. The second line writes itself slower, as if the hand that writes it needs to remember how to make a curve. Bring iron, bring milk, bring truth. No one is clever for a full heartbeat. Even the drones have the manners to float and not comment. Log, Khumalo says, voice just a shade lower. We take river law seriously. We choose our mouth carefully. Witness sun, earth, moon, water, prepare. We will parley at the spillway at dusk. The bell on Nandi 2 tinkles as if agreeing or laughing. The filings settle into corners like ash. The wind along the fence smells like wires, milk, and something old enough to remember when this land was all throat and no concrete. We turn uphill. The drones follow. I feel the ledger in the bright room turn a page like a person getting out of a chair. The gut string in the wall hums under plaster even through the new lime. Somewhere under our feet, the river smiles with too many teeth and good reasons. Yes. Boring saves, Sipho says to nobody and to all of us. Boring saves, we say back. Because a parlay is still a day, and a day is still a loop. Part 2. What we bring to water. The school runs like a kitchen when something big is coming. Everyone cleans the thing they are afraid to use. Khumalo posts the parley protocol on the dining hall board. Block letters that can be read at a jog. Mouth to speak. Headmistress first, then witness if called. Sun only by request. Earth/water/moon to manage environment and safety. Circle chalk double ring on concrete apron. Not a mouth on edges. Gate left open. River hates closed gates. Offerings required by river. Iron milk truth. Weapons, none drawn. Iron is for ground, not throats. Drones. Nandi 1, Nandi 2, hold perimeter. No filming, bells stay on. Crowd, none. Only assigned. Bracelets, mask beads for all present. No pairing permissions, no second touches. Someone has drawn a little cow next to the word milk with a speech bubble that says, not UHT. Nurse Nandi circles it and writes fresh in red. We all understand that fresh is a mouth rule, not a culinary one. We split for kits. Send Sun Kit KWANDA. He loads with practice, not swagger. 2 iron collars for grounding, 3 clamps, a pouch of iron filings, a folded length of chain with a threaded earth spike on one end, de Klerk's idea, and a bowl, not brass, not wood, cast iron, for making holds that stay true near water. He checks the ground line on his belt twice, clips and unclips with the certainty of someone who has bled for getting it wrong. The sun crack along his radius shows the thin branch by the wrist. He rolls the joint. It obeys. Yeah. Spare clamp? Busi asks, already knowing the answer. 2, he says, and shows the teeth of each like a dentist. Earth kit, Busi. Chalk by the fist, fat, ugly sticks. 2 sacks of lime, we learned yesterday. A pouch of limestone dust ready to throw. Bone shears honed. A bricklayer's line, level for making rings even on bad concrete. A trowel. A little tin of paint and a brush that has no interest in looking neat. A hammer with a soft head, because earth doesn't always need to break to win. Milk jars? She asks. Nandi slides over 2 squat glass bottles with wire bales. Raw, cow, she says, warm by the time you pour. Water kit, Sipho. Impefo, coals in a lidded tin, a skin of clean river water collected upstream at dawn, salt, a rope with simple knots, and a heap of wet cloths in a pail that looks like it was made to be steady, not pretty. He pins a list to his sleeve. Smoke low, never blessed drone's sideways breath. Truth? He asks, not looking at anyone in particular. Coming, de Klerk says. Moon kit Dandi. Portable panel, hand crank for if the power sulks, an old-fashioned tuning fork, and a set of printed frequencies taped to the back of the panel with the word flat underlined 3 times. She writes no singing across her forearm in marker and then writes no again because ink wears off faster than habit. Drones at 3? She checks. 1500, de Klerk confirms. Same sweep? Bells on? Witness kit, me. Ledger blank page folded into the back, a pencil that writes when damp iron string under my collar, and a single matchbox in the top pocket. Empty. I am not taking anyone's bead tonight. Busi sees the pocket and nods once. Good, she says. We are done flirting with Smalius. Truth. De Klerk appears with a brown archival folder like a man carrying a pot that bites. The label is sun-faded. Reticulation 7B. The edges smell like dust that remembers other dust. Inside, a typed work order from 10 years ago. Sunmaster Zulu. The signature is strong, blocky, authorizes a conduit loop between the bright room and the east rail, purpose, containment carrier, under council exception. Reviewers' names listed, 3 signatures. 1 signature missing with a line drawn through the space and a note. Present abstained. Your father? Busi asks, not gentle, not cruel. KWANDA doesn't touch the paper. He reads the signature without moving any other part of his face. Yes, he says. Nandi flips the sheet to the second page. A risk note. String may carry imprint. Side effects to be absorbed by designate. Under that, a line of initials and a date and the stamp we've all learned to hate. Approved conditional. Yes. Why do we have this now? I ask. It was in the wrong box, the clerk says, and some things come up when you ask truth for them with your mouth open. He glances at the ledger at my elbow like it might bite him. It doesn't. Yet. Truth is not gossip, Khumalo says. It is receipt. She taps the folder. This is a receipt. We bring it. What about the rest? Thandi asks, eyes sharp. The part where he became the place you put bad stories. Not printed, the clerk says. Not here. Then the truth we bring is this truth, Khumalo says. And the promise to answer when asked, not to perform. No one argues. We don't have the breath for philosophy and the river at the same time. At 15 o'clock, the drone wardens go up again. The bells tinkle, ridiculous and correct. Nandi 1 traces the rail route. Nandi 2 maps the fence and the path along the spillway. Iron filings pepper concrete like a polite hailstorm. Thandi flattens under the hum until the drones stop thinking they're a song. And by the flag cleat, filings pour again into the sun knot we saw earlier. 4 rays, a break, a ray turned inward. Busi sketches it into her notebook exactly. It's not pretty, she tells me, but it's real. At the fence gate, filings snake down and under. The pattern thickens toward the spillway lip and then disappears, as if iron doesn't want to say out loud what lives in a mouth that big. Inte. Nandi 2 will hold at the gate, the clerk says. Nandi 1 at the lip high. We do not put bells over water without permission. Inte. Permission isn't a sentence, Nandi says. It's an offering. We have milk. We do a dry run in the quad because the only cheap mistakes are the ones you make far from the place that eats people. Namas. Double ring with Earth's line level. Inner and outer circles. Hand width apart. Ring joins chalked and bruised with lime so they can be seen even by eyes that want to lie. Not a mouth block printed at the apron edge. Iron bowl at the north point of the circle. Milk jars south. Truth folder west. Drones due east. Witness stands here, Khumalo says, pointing to the inner circle's east point. You do not speak unless the water asks your mouth by name. Yes, ma'am, I say. Sun stands to witness's right, she says. Hands visible, no second touches. Understood, KWANDA says. Earth at north. Chalk, lime, shears, water at south. Smoke, cloths, milk, moon at west. Hum flat, panel ready on crank if we lose power. I will stand at center. If I fall, you drag me out and pour milk on my mouth before you argue about feelings. We practice the milk pour until it is not an idea. Water can read your hands. So can the people you are trying to save. Naledi chalks drains under supervision all afternoon. A small line of not a mouth down the laundry corridor, down the side hall, down the scullery floor. She doesn't look up when we pass. Her mask bead sits dull on her bracelet, eating yellow. You can't tell if she hates us or if she has learned something. Both are possible. By sunset, the ridge is a bruise under a new shirt. The spillway concrete is still wet in shaded places. The apron glows a tired orange where sun found it. Buses on the road above make the kind of noise a river ignores. We carry our kit down the path to the chain-link gate. We leave it open. The drones hover on their marks like ugly, obedient birds. Bells quiet for now. The iron filings from the afternoon sweep still glitter in cracks. They look like a map someone hid inside a floor on purpose. Maybe they are. We chalk the double ring on the apron. We paint not a mouth across the lip twice until it looks like a mistake that will not wash off. Busi taps the ring with the line level, nudges a curve with her toe, nods. Sipho lights the impefo and lets the smoke fall down the slope, not out. It sits like a thought that has learned to sit still. Nandi hands me the truth folder. Hold without waving, she says. Truth is not a flag. I hold. Khumalo steps into the inner circle and breathes once. She looks at the gate. It is open. She looks at the river. It is pretending to be asleep with its eyes open. Offerings, she says, to us and to anyone listening. Iron, milk, truth. KWANDA plants the earth spike through a chain link into soil and clips his ground line to it. He lays the iron bowl at the north point so it can be a mouth for light if light gets fussy. Sipho opens a milk jar and sets it near his feet. The smell is warm and animal and honest. Khumalo lifts her chin an inch. We ask to speak, she says. Nothing happens for 9 heartbeats, which is many more heartbeats than you think it is when a river is counting with you. Then the waterline rises a finger width, though no volume has arrived. A skin stretches over the square mouth of the spillway. Not water, not air, something that learned both. It bulges outward and becomes a face without features, only cheekbones and a crown that is just light caught by wet. The letters we saw earlier slide into the skin like veins. The mouth that is not a mouth does not open. The skin speaks without breaking. Iron. Ooh. Khumalo points with her chin. KWANDA picks up the iron bowl, turns it upside down, no mouths toward water unless asked, and sets it on the concrete at the north mark. He places one collar on the bowl's base. He does not step into the inner ring. His hands are visible. He says nothing. The bowl hums a little the way iron hums when a storm thinks about it. Milk. Sipho lifts the jar and pours a line of milk along the outer ring from south to west and stops where he started. He doesn't pour into the water. He pours around the mouth like you would a child you are teaching to speak. The milk sits white and certain. It smells like a story the body recognizes. The skin face pauses. It writes a new word into itself. Truth. Khumalo looks at me. My mouth knows the script we practiced. I step to the east point of the inner ring, keep both feet inside chalk, and say the sentence we agreed to, nothing extra. We have a document, I say. 10 years old. It says the gut string in our wall was laid under council exception. It says a designate would absorb the side effects. The designate was Sun Master Zulu. That is the truth we brought in paper. I do not say his first name. The river knows it if it wants to. And the face shivers. Letters climb into the cheek where a human would keep a tongue. Why lies about him then? Not a sentence with punctuation. A wait. It is not a question directed at me. It sits in the ring for anyone with a mouth. Khumalo answers first because that is the rule. Because people hate paying visible prices, she says. They hit a bill in a man and then blamed him for being the envelope. The skin twitches once, the way water twitches when a fish turns. Where is he? The air feels like the inside of a mistake. KWANDA's hand opens and closes once, not a reach, a reminder. He has rights here I cannot calculate. He is alive, Khumalo says, in the way lightning remains a fact after it is no longer visible. She does not look at me. She does not look at him. We believe string still uses his shape. The face sinks and rises, the way people nod in countries where nodding means something different. You will open 7B and pour him out. No, Busi says before rank can catch up with mouth. We will not open what we cannot close. The river does not take offense. It changes shape. The crown goes from light to braid. Filings on the apron tremble and line up into a little ladder that leads from the truth folder to the iron bowl to the milk mark. It is drawing us a picture, and I do not like that I can read it. Then give me the string that eats girls and cats. String will pass through iron and lime and chalk and boring. Khumalo says, it will be cut. It will be starved, not fed. The skin purses. It doesn't have lips. It makes lips anyway. Parley price. Nandi steps half a pace forward without stepping into the inner ring. This is her lane. Name it, she says. The surface of the spillway throat goes the gray of first light. Not dramatic, just tired. Milk in drought. Iron at festival. Truth when asked. The words sit there. They do not look like bargaining. They look like policy. Agreed, Khumalo says, before the school can generate an opinion. We can be boring in all 3 seasons. The surface smooths. It reduces itself to one more line. Name the boy who carries the hold. No one speaks by accident. The drone's bells do a single unhelpful chime. KWANDA steps 1/2 step forward, still outside the inner ring, hands visible. Zulu KWANDA, he says. Son, I am the hold. The river's skin brightens at the crack in his arm and dims when the milk line cools. It writes 4 letters, slowly. Good. Then it does something that isn't on any of our lists. It reaches, not water, not hand, a pressure across the chalk, testing the place where no second touches lives between me and him. It wants to make us spend. No second touches, I say, first. It isn't a spell. It is a bill paid in public. Khumalo sets the heel of her shoe gently on the inner ring to remind the ring it is supposed to be a ring. Sipho breathes and the smoke sits. Thandi keeps flat. Busi grinds a line of lime into the chalk until chalk is no longer a suggestion. It is ground. The pressure decides we are boring and glides back into the mouth where it belongs. The skin writes one last thing, and I realize it has beautiful handwriting when it wants to. Tomorrow I will eat the knots in your stairs. Don't make me eat your wall. Tomorrow, Khumalo says. We will put out bowls and chalk, and you can show us where you want us to be boring. The skin goes. Not a splash, not a swirl. Down. The throat takes its water like a man drinking, and then the surface looks like nothing ever happened. We stand in the evening with milk drying in a white line and iron humming under a bowl and a folder of truth waiting my hands. We do not clap. We do not make loud relief. We pick up tools. We pour the remaining milk on the outside of the gate and on the hinge, because gates are mouths and hinges are throats. We chalk not a mouth over the words we can't see anymore. We put away the bowl upside down and carry the iron lines like rope. On the path up, KWANDA walks beside me the way a person walks beside a fence. Close enough to greet, far enough not to snag. That was a touch, he says, quiet. It wanted us to waste hours, I say. We didn't, he says. We don't smile. The rule holds. The price waits. The river has our calendar. Part 3. After the river says good. The walk back up from the spillway feels like climbing out of a sentence you didn't write. We don't talk much. The milk dries white on Sipho's cuff. The iron bowl sweats where his hand warms it. The folder under my arm has that old paper weight that makes elbows sore. KWANDA carries the chain and the spike coiled like a tame snake. The sun crack along his forearm has accepted its thin new branch. The skin around it looks like a map made by someone who doesn't love borders. By the time we hit the quad, the school knows we did not drown. Drones settle on the trolley with a last apologetic jingle. Someone has dragged a trestle table out. Someone else has put mugs there. Nobody remembers fetching the kettle. Nurse Nandi pours. Miss Hadebe counts heads. The clerk labels plastic tubs for iron filings like a man who courted order and married it. Khumalo writes the parley terms on the notice board in the same uncompromising black. River parley concluded. Terms accepted. Milk in drought. Iron at festival. Truth when asked. Tomorrow morning. Eating of the knot stare hand elbows campus wide. Witness present. Earth cuts only on ring. Moon flat. Water smoke low. Sun mug at breath. Do not grab rails. M. Warning. Don't make me eat your wall. Lime wash bright room east wall. Second coat tonight. Under that, in smaller letters, a line for eyes that want to behave. No second touches during surge. Ask for the first, decline the second. Live. Ye. Busi slaps a post-it under the stair line. Learn to walk with your elbows out. The little drawing of a stick figure keeping its arms away from rails makes 3 first years snort into their tea. Humor is a fence. We filed to a bench under the wild fig with our mugs, because fig trees keep secrets without trying. The friend group, me, Busi, Thandi, Sipho, sits. KWANDA stands with his back against the trunk like a post remembering why it was cut. Khumalo stays near the board, fielding adults. Unpack, Busi says, flicking chalk from her pocket onto the bench like seeds. She means, tell me what the water asked that words didn't catch. I lay the truth folder on the wood and open it flat. The work order sits like a bite taken 10 years ago. The signature, Sunmaster Zulu, is clean and alive in a way signatures shouldn't be. The sun knot the filings drew, I say. 4 rays, break, inward ray. Self-eater, KWANDA says. The first words he has spent since we came up. He doesn't look at the page. He looks at the memory behind it. We use it when we want a loop to consume its echo instead of throwing it down the line. It leaves a bruise in metal and in men. In men, Thandi repeats, soft. It was meant to live in the rail, not in a person, he says, still looking at the place behind everyone's heads. But if the loop needs a designate, a mouth, and the wall can't hold, sun holds. Says, Sipho rests his elbows on his knees, palms open like bowls. So when the river asked where is he, it was asking where the mouth went. It heard the hold, I say, thinking of the pressure that reached for our price. And it tried to spend us. We didn't, Busi says, and flicks chalk across his boots in a small, rude blessing that is mostly habit and a little worship. Tomorrow, Thandi says, tapping the word on the board with her chin. Eating of the knots. Earth and water will set rings at the rails. River will... What? Melt them? Eat is a good verb, Sipho says. She'll soften the intention in the fibers and pull it back. You'll hear it like fat hissing in a pan. You'll smell nail polish and old dams. Naledi's favorite perfume, Busi mutters. We all look toward the laundry corridor out of habit. Naledi is there, under supervision, chalking not a mouth along the drains. Her mask bead eats the yellow glow every time a boy with a fresh haircut goes by. She doesn't flinch when the bead nips her. She turns her wrist and keeps writing. There are many kinds of skill. Khumalo joins us with 2 mugs balanced in one hand. Second coat, she says, nodding at me and Busi. Then registry check, then sleep. I want your mouths boring for breakfast. Copy, Busi says, already standing. 2 minutes, I say, and hold up the folder. 1 line, ma'am. She reads the missing signature line. Present, abstained. The way she reads misprinted labels on medicine. The person who abstained doesn't fit in the space, she says. We'll ask the river for the name when it counts, not before. Whoever it was, Thandi says, they saw the bill and put their hands in their pockets. Khumalo sets her mug down empty. Some bills arrive with nails in them. We'll pick them out tomorrow. She turns to go, then comes back 1 step. Witness. Yes, ma'am? You kept your price today. Keep it again tomorrow. There's no magic in 1 touch. There's only the world's habit of asking for the second. I know, I say. Knowing is cheap. Doing is what costs. We clean our hands with lime before we touch the bright room wall. Earth superstition or practical chemistry. Either way, it keeps skin from being too much of a story. The first coat of lime we slapped on before Parley has dried into a chalky crust. The word string we scrawled earlier still shows through like a scar under powder. The gut under the plaster hums like a vein in the wrong limb, softer than before, not asleep. Then, second coat, Busi says. We stir lime and water in a bucket until it makes a sound that would be soup in another life. I take the brush. She takes the trowel. We push disinterest into wall. Say it, Busi says a minute in, eyes on the layer we are laying. Paint is a tool, I say, and the wall behaves like a patient admitting the truth in the intake room. The hum dulls to a damp you only hear in your teeth. A line travels under the lime, slow, sly, as if it is trying not to break surface tension. I follow it with brush and boring. It pauses at the height of my jaw and then slides sideways toward the cabinet that holds 7B. The cabinet does not rattle because we braced it with sense. If the wall is a vein, I say, voice low, what are we doing? Clotting? Blocking a bad drip, Busi says. We're making it run slow so adults can catch up. If they think we solved this with paint, we will make them write us a letter of apology later. She smooths lime over the baseboard as if it's a throat that needs to be taught to swallow safely. I think of the river's not your wall and feel grateful for buckets. On the way out, I keep my eyes pointed at the hinge of the door because eyes are hands in places like this. In the corridor, de Klerk has set up the drones for a third sweep. A night map. He has tied tissue paper streamers to each arm. A ridiculous, wonderful trick. So if strings move in air, the fringe will drag and tell on the gust that isn't wind. Bells? Thandi asks. Bells stay on, de Klerk says. Every living thing deserves warning. He glances at my throat and at KWANDA's arm the way a man looks at pressure gauges. No heroics, he says, which is his way of saying please live. We send Nandi 1 and -2 up. Their hum sits in the ear like cheap neon. Thandi flattens below it so the roof doesn't start worshipping itself. The streamers trail. No mysterious tug. Not tonight. The filings hopper coughs only once, at the flag cleat, and even then the spill is less than this afternoon. The sun knot in the pattern still shows, determined, old. KWANDA watches it like you watch a word you once loved being mispronounced. You could undo it, I say, before I remember to swallow my mouth. And paint my father over with my own hands? He says. Not tonight. He walks away before I can pour sorry where it isn't needed. Busi elbows me in the ribs exactly once to remind me the rule is not one apology either. It's small. Registry. Zizi wakes when we enter, blinks, and re-chooses sleep. Lindiwi has left a polite note. Thank you, Akona Stay Spoon. Reset morning written in fat letters across the crate with a smiley I recognize as Thandi's, which is charming and unhelpful. We check window dust. Still a clear arc where a finger tried and failed. We smooth dust back into the groove with indulgent malice. We label it again. Dust decor. Some jokes must be told until they bore the devil. On the way out, the ledger on the high shelf turns a page. No draft, no hand. It writes nothing. It leaves the page open like a dog leaving a door ajar. Not tonight, I tell it, because my mouth has learned to talk to furniture. We are boring. The bracket of KWANDA's shoulders pauses at the door and then moves on. He is not a door. He is someone who remembers where doors go in a blueprint. Night patrol. The storm is over. What's left is drip and habit. Laundry elbow, chalk rings intact, no knot. We leave a saucer of milk at the bottom step with a not a mouth chalked around it because tomorrow we're hosting a guest. Scullery grinders off, tomato rule greasy and loved. Candle still dark under reset morning card. Roof, rails chalked call maint. Clamp still below conduit. Drones back on charge. Bells hung on the peg like small, useless jewelry. Chapel prayer list folded around Tommy's name like a box. No matches in reach. First years asleep on benches because grief can only stand up so long. And East Corridor. The ceiling gap we chalked yesterday has been boarded and painted ugly by maintenance. Busi writes thank you on the paint with chalk and underlines it twice. Grown-ups like to find their work noticed. Funny. We pass Naledi in the hall with a crate of chalk and a water student shadowing her as a supervisor. She wears the mask bead dull on her wrist like a bandage. When she sees us, she lifts a stick of chalk and writes, "Not a mouth," on the fire hose cupboard without being told. It's petty to be proud. It's okay to be warmed by it anyway. You keep your S, she says to me without pausing her letters. What S? I ask. Small, she says, and moves on. She is sometimes the best enemy you'll ever have, the kind who keeps you exact. We put chairs in our doorways and sleep facing the hall. At 1:40, the morph siren coughs once and shuts up. AA from a courtyard, false start. A moth bumps the light outside the bathroom and drops, tagged person in orange by some too eager first year. It flutters back up grumpy as the tag slips and a kitchen auntie pinches it away with 2 fingers and says he at herself for forgetting sleep. He. At 3:10, the drain outside residence B pops a single green bead that very clearly spells no and then yes and then nothing. Sipho sleepwalks out with a mug, pours milk in the grate, and goes back to bed without speaking. The bead sinks like a kid choosing to obey because someone remembered their name. At 4:45, the ledger finally gives up trying to get my attention and writes in a hand that isn't mine. String under paint acknowledges hold. Name for crossing, not yet earned. I put my forearm over my eyes and say no to being flattered by objects. We wake with chalk hands and milk breath and a river appointment on the board. Busi hands me a bowl of porridge and a list. The list says stairs in caps, then West Dorm elbow, laundry elbow, library mez, chapel ramp, admin access, roof hatch, gym bleachers, all the places hands reach before brains vote. Khumalo meets us at the first landing with a crate of clean towels and a face that means nobody dies because we were proud. Nandi 1 and -2 hover in the doorways with bells tied and streamers on. The drones look like ugly saints. Remember, Khumalo says, voice even in the long echo. She will eat what is not. She will not eat what is wall if you do your job. If she reaches, you pour. If she takes, you chalk. If she asks, you answer. Witness, you warn before outside. No second touches. Copy, we say, and the stairwell smells like plan. Busi chalks a ring around the first elbow. Sipho sets milk in a small bowl outside the ring. Thandi flattens hum until the stair forgets it ever wanted to sing. KWANDA puts his palm a handspan from the elbow, mug ready where recoil likes to aim. I set my mouth where it belongs and warn so everyone hears my bones listen. The first knot shows itself like a hair catching light, glued neat under the rail where fingers go when they panic. It twitches like a live fish. Proceed, Khumalo says. We are creatures who love repetition. We give the river a mouth made of chalk and milk and iron and flat. We let her eat. And when she does, when the line loosens and slides into nothing, the way a bad idea decides to remember how to be a string without a job, you can hear it. A little sizzle, a whiff of polish, a note like hair burning on a stove. The rail shakes itself free of the lie and stands there embarrassed. Again, Busi says, already chalking the next elbow. We have a lot of apologies to accept from metal. We carry on, step by step, elbow by elbow, ring by ring, until the building learns. The river keeps her word. She eats. She does not bite the wall. We will pay our bill in milk and iron and truth in the seasons she named. And we will keep our price, the one she tried to spend, on our terms. We are boring. We go to work. Part 4. The day the stairs apologized. If you do a thing enough times, the building starts doing it with you. By mid-morning, the stair elbows have learned to present their shame without being asked. We work in a rhythm that could be sung if singing didn't anger rooms. Busi chalks the ring. Sipho lays milk in a thumb-wide arc just outside. Thandi drops the flat like a blanket. KWANDA sets a mug the size of a saucer where recoil loves faces. I set my jaw on the iron and warn. The knot shows its neat, mean work. Clear polish shine, fishing line hiss, then slips out of itself and dies with a small sound like hair in a candle. The rail gives a little shiver of embarrassment. We move on. We take the library mezzanine. 2 elbows, 1 at eye level, 1 under the rail where panic hands go. Students lean over the balcony until Busi makes them step back by writing "not a mouth" on the floor in letters the size of lunch. The knot under the low rail is tied with tiny care. It smells like someone who practiced on thread before graduating to line. It unspools and crawls away like a bad idea refusing to look anyone in the eye. On the chapel ramp, the river keeps her word. The first knot we wring in milk has already softened. It falls off as if someone with a wet mouth kissed it loose and changed their mind about being clever. Sipho murmurs a thank you so small it could be mistaken for breathing. The smoke sits, inaned. At the gym bleachers, where hands fling out on the way down because joy hates gravity, we find 3 knots in a row. Busi chalks all 3 rings at once. No heroics, she says, and cuts 1, then 2, then 3 inside dust. The bleachers groan like metal remembering to be furniture. A first-year claps once before he can stop himself and earns a glare from Thandi that will keep him alive for a year. By lunchtime, students have learned to walk with their elbows out, as Busi instructs. Someone has drawn stick figures doing it on a whiteboard with the caption, "Elbow is a tool. We don't erase it. Let the joke do its work." Idets. Between runs, de Klerk steals us for 10 minutes into a side classroom and does something that makes him look almost like a magician. He turns filings and chalk into a model. And on the desk, he draws a straight line for the rail run, a box for the bright room, and a loop for the conduit. He sprinkles iron filings till they make hair along the chalk, then taps the sheet. Normal filings lie. Surge, filings align. Echo pushes out and back. This, he says, pinching a small star from a pocket, is the sun knot. He places the star where the rail would take a turn. The filings nearest self-arrange into the 4 rays, the break, and the ray turned inward. The line of filings down the page thins. The star fattens. The echo eats itself there. It bruises metal, he says, and the one who stands in for metal if one is assigned. He doesn't look at KWANDA. He doesn't need to. 10 years will wear a person. It wore him. That is not rumor. It's mechanics. Who signed this into the wall? Thandi asks, tapping the folder. Council exception, he says. Signatures here. 1 line, present, abstained. We still don't have the name. Then the river gets the question next time truth is owed. Busi says she has already begun a list titled Ask Later. She adds abstain name under Y string under paint and who taught a child to tie like a locksmith. Locksmith? Sipho asks. Busi holds up the last 2 knots we bagged. This isn't hobby fishing. Whoever tied these learned on the fittings and fixtures. People who hide hands for a living. The workshop? Thandi asks, frowning. Workshop kids grind bolts and weld rails, Busi says. They don't file harness clips to fail. This is someone who can't stand not to touch a moving part. We write second saboteur on the list without a name. The drone wardens do a noon pass, bells unashamed, streamers tied to their arms like foolish saints. Nandi 1 hovers above the east stairs while we work the elbow below. The streamers barely stir. That's what you want. Wind only. At the admin access stair, a seldom-used flight that smells like papers and old varnish, the streamer on Nandi 2 yawns sideways, a full handspan. Not wind. Not us. A pull. Left, I say, mouth already on the iron. Right, KWANDA says, palm out, mug set where a snap would love my face. Busi chalks a double ring around the new knot mid-post. Someone's improved attempt, hidden under a frame plate with clear polish, making it shine like innocence. Sipho smoke low. Thandi drops the flat a hair deeper until even the dust settles. We go slow. Cut inside dust. Ping. Mug takes snap. Suncrack lights and cools. I don't pull outside because I don't need to. The streamer on the drone straightens like a scolded child. We bag the line. The bag already has 8 cousins. De Klerk writes admin access mid-post on the label and underlines it as if underlining is a kind of hex. On the chalkboard by the stair, someone has written in tidy print, "Do not be clever near rails." Under it in messier hand, "Be boring. Go home." We leave it. Good graffiti is policy. 2 corridors over, Nurse Nandi catches a new kind of trap before it learns to be tragic. A bracelet charm, pretty, matte, innocuous, magnet clips exactly over a mask bead and cancels it. The charm looks like a smooth river pebble. The inside is a pocket of fine iron dust and adhesive thin as breath. Someone wants to let glow through while pretending to be safe, Nandi says, tongue unsharp. This goes in the evidence with a note. Romantic engineering. It isn't Naledi, Thandi says flat. She would have worn it to the hearing out of spite. Second saboteur has hands, tools, and time, Busi says. Workshop access, supply closet keys, or a courier with a pretty face. We bag the charm. We put a sign on the notice board. No new charms. We hand out ugly school-issue mask beads from a cardboard box that used to hold tinned tomatoes. No one complains, which is how you know fear is doing useful work. After lunch, the river keeps eating what it promised to eat. At the roof hatch, where fingers always seek a grip, the knot we wring has already gone soft. It slides to the hinge like a worm that made a poor plan, and now would like to be soil. Busi flicks it into a jar with a look that refuses to assign drama. Sipho pours a coin of milk on the hatch handle. Thandi flattens so the wind doesn't get ideas. Write it down, Khumalo says from the foot of the ladder, where she conducts a day with a clipboard like a metronome. River compliant, hatch clean, workshop audit this afternoon. Workshop audit? I ask. Locks, clips, glue, line, she says. We look in boxes where boys hide their brilliance when they are bored. The boys who hear it pretend they didn't. That's also a kind of skill. The workshop smells like iron burnt thin and old coffee. Hooks hold tools asleep. The benches wear their history in scratches and measurements that only make sense if you made them. Mr. Naidu, who runs the room like a ship, stands with his arms crossed and his mouth in a line that forgives everything and excuses nothing. Inventory, Khumalo says. He reads like a man counting ribs. Fishing line, none signed out this term. Clear lacquer, 1 bottle missing, DIY club. Files, 2 checked out, 1 overdue. Magnet clips, none in stock. Club order requested, denied. He frowns at that last line as if it insulted his mother. We don't do magnet near mask beads, he says. That is a shop rule as of 5 minutes ago, but it has always been true. The DIY club locker holds exactly what you don't want. A tangle of line, beads, clips, pretty nothing. None of it labeled, all of it persuasive. Names, Khumalo says. A list appears. 4. 2 we recognize as Naledi's orbit. 2 we don't. 1 name makes Busi's chalk pause. Ruan. A quiet boy from Sun who likes making things that move and never looks you in the eye until you are done talking. Fetch him, Khumalo says. He arrives with his hair clean and his soul worried. He sees the bracelet charm in the evidence bag and looks nauseous. That's mine, he says, honesty arriving rude and late. I mean, I made it. I didn't think... It was a gift, for I thought it was cute. It cancels mask beads, Nandi says, not raising her voice. It makes glow look swallowed while it slips through. I didn't... He stops. He starts again. I copied a video, 2 magnets, a shield. I thought it would make dance class more if they could. He runs down like a toy. I didn't think of stairs. Thinking is what this school pays you to do, Khumalo says. You will unmake every charm you sold. You will collect every one you gave. You will take the room ethics class and you will pass it so hard even your grandchildren will hear about it. You will make templates for things that cannot be made here and post them. You will not touch magnets this month. Bring me your phone. He hands it over without performative sadness. He is that kind of boy. The one who will be dangerous when smart. And the line? Busi asks, holding up a bag. His face does something that says I've seen that nod and it wasn't me. That's not mine, he says. It's not a dodge. It lands like truth on tile. He points at the clear polished bag, then at the line. Different brains, he says. Different hands. Then we still have a second saboteur, Thandi says, and writes it on the board bigger. You have to name a hole before you can cover it. Late afternoon. The school breathes like a horse cooling after a run. The river's word holds. The elbows are clean. The rails wear chalk like jewelry. Not a mouth sits fat on the lips that wanted to play mouths. We leave milk at the foot of the main staircase and on the hinges of the gates. Because hinges are throats, and throats learn to lie this week. The ledger writes one sentence of its own in a hand that is too calm to be mine. String under lime acknowledged hold. First appetite slaked. Name for crossing still withheld. I don't read it out loud. I don't need to. On the notice board, Khumalo adds 3 lines for eyes that prefer orders to poetry. Stairs. All elbows cleared, rings removed, no grabbing policy stands. Workshop, DIY audit complete. Bracelet charm, recall underway. Magnets banned near mask beads. Ruin assigned to unmaking. River, terms observed. Milk placed on hinges at dusk. Truth next demand pending. Underneath, she writes the day's small litany. Paint is a tool, chalk is a tool, milk is a tool, boring is a tool, use them. She taps her pen against the board twice. It sounds like a heartbeat in a hallway. Sita. We take our chairs back to our doorways. We face the hall. The storm is over, but the work isn't, which is how you can tell we're still at school and not in a story someone wrote to be over too soon. In the doorway, KWANDA rests his hand against the frame without looking at me. Your father's knot was on the rail, not on you, I say, because the thought has been scuffing my ribs since the filings drew the star. And he stood in it so other people didn't. He nods once, as if we are reading the same line on a page that has survived a kitchen flood. That is what the work order says, he says. Not what people said. People prefer villains to receipts. We brought a receipt, I say. Tomorrow we might bring a name, he says. We do not touch. We do not need to. The rule holds. The price waits. The wall hums softer than it did yesterday. The river keeps its mouth to itself. Pen. We sleep with chalk under our nails and the taste of milk at the back of our throats. The drones hang bells on their peg like saints taking off crowns. The workshop lights go out with a mutter. The ledger keeps a page open like a promise. Morning will ask for truth again. We will bring it with our hands. Part 5. The name that wouldn't sign. By early afternoon, the building moves like a person who has learned to keep their hands out of trouble. Rails wear chalk like bangles. Drains sulk under not a mouth. The last milk coins dry white at the foot of the main stair. That them? Khumalo taps the board once. Workshop audit complete. Elbows cleared, and then adds a line that turns everyone's head. Archives. Retrieve council exception minutes. Year -10. Witness Earth, Sun, Moon, Water. No solos. 2. Receipts, she says. We promise truth when asked. We fetch what our mouths need. The records room. The archives live under admin in a room that smells like paper the rain never quite got to. Naidu unlocks the gate with a slow hand. He hates that he has a key and hates more that someone else might have one. We chalk not a mouth on the floor drain before we do anything else. Call us superstitious. We call it cheap insurance. The clerk goes shelf to shelf with a list that looks like it bites. Reticulation? 7B? Council? 10 years, he mutters, fingers in the habit of men who never put a file back in the wrong place on purpose. Busi runs a line of limestone dust along the shelf edges. If a string tried to teach these boxes how to walk, we'll see its footprints. Here, Thandi's voice carries without echo. Box Ret 7B Council, the label in the same sun-faded hand as our folder. The lid is tied with a bow of fishing line that looks like cotton until the light turns it into truth. Inside ring, Busi says. Chalk, dust curtain. I warn, I say, because my jaw is faster than my shame on good days. My fingers itch to unname only the knot in the bow and leave the rest of the world alone. Do not witness, Khumalo says without turning her head. Earth cuts, sun bowls, water breathes, moon flattens. A box is not a mouth. We do it like adults. Busi slides the bone shears inside dust and snips. The ping is small and mean. KWANDA's mug takes the snap before my face can volunteer. Sipho lets smoke sit low so the box forgets to want to be a person. Thandi keeps the hum flat until the room admits its furniture. We lift the lid. Inside, the minutes in thin onion skin copies, attendance list, names, signatures, a map with the rail run penciled in, and a small sun knot sketched at the flag cleat. A memo stamped approved conditional, and a page missing, torn clean. On the attendance sheet, a line sits where a signature should be. It reads, Present abstained, no name. That's the space the river asked about, Thandi says. Which means the river will ask again, Sipho says. And this is where we look like fools if we say we don't know a second time, Busi says. She looks at me because she knows my mouth is preparing a crime. Say the boundary, Khumalo says. I swallow a mouthful of habits. I can try outside on ink only, I say. 3 counts, inside ring, no breath outside, no skin, no room. Just the layer on the page where oil and air made the name vanish. If there is only absence, nothing to see. If someone lifted it with solvent, I might see where the pressure pressed. Khumalo nods once. Proceed. Earth chalk, sun mug, water cloth ready, moon flat, witness worn and stop early. Busi chalks a second ring on the table, ugly, close around the page. Sipho lays damp cloths near my hand. Thandi drops the flat until even the light feels like it's sitting down. KWANDA sets his palm near my wrist. Mug for whatever a page would love to spit. And I put my jaw on iron. Outside, ink only, 3. The page breathes back at me. The kind of dry you only hear when you've pressed flowers in dictionaries. I pull a thin, mean circle of outside around the line where a pen once lay. Not the paper, not my fingers, not the room. 1, 2, 3, I stop. Nothing moves. Then the shine on the line does a thing old paper does when it remembers being touched. It blooms with the faintest pressure scars, loops and hooks, shadows of a hand, not letters, direction. Angle, I whisper. Upstroke left to right, long M, O, K, O, na. Mokoena, Thandi breathes. Elder Palesa Mokoena. She was counsel that year. Present abstained, Busi says. She chose to see the bill and not sign the check. I blink hard. Behind my eyes, a dot of pain flares where a person keeps their budget for clever. Sipho presses a damp cloth to my temple without making it a fuss. KWANDA keeps his mug steady until the page remembers it is a page and not a mouth. Khumalo copies the ghost letters without triumph. She writes P. Mokoena abstained on the minute's margin, and then writes Ask River in square hand. We do not make a story from a scar, she says. We bring the scar and we let the river decide if it is a truth or an excuse. We inventory the rest of the box. It is boring in exactly the way that saves. We bag the fishing line bow. We take photos. We put the box back with a dust seam and a card. Do not move that looks flimsy and behaves like a wall. Foit. On the way out, Naidu points at the ceiling vent with a frown. That never rattled, he says. Busi dusts it. Line shows like a guilty nerve, glimmering toward the corridor. The drone warden's trolley is 2 halls away. De Klerk is already launching Nandi 2 before anyone asks him. The drone streamer tugs at the vent. Not wind. Pull. String harp, Busi says, mouth sour. We follow the streamer through 2 turns and into a dead-end closet that houses nothing but a coil of hose and a mop that hates its job. Behind the mop, a frame, a child's weaving loom, really, laced with fishing lines in 12 neat parallels, each tied to the vent with a sliding knot. A magnet the size of a coin holds a mask bead in the middle of the web like a spider supper. It's designed to vibrate when air moves, and to drop the bead on a line when someone tries to pull the web down. Mask off is the prize for impatience. Second saboteur likes music, Thandi says flatly. Likes teaching the air to misbehave, Busi says. We set a ring. KWANDA lays his mug the size of a saucer. I warn and don't touch anything. Busi snips inside dust, 1 line at a time. 12 little pings. The drone streamer relaxes like a bad idea that got bored. Sipho scoops the magnet with a metal cup and drops it into a bag with a clack that makes the mop jump. Khumalo writes evidence. String harp on the label and adds mask bead trap in ink darker than the day. Workshop keys, she says. Inventory any frame that could be threaded. We will staple posters to the walls with truth until the walls get the point. But Naidu looks like he might weep for his room. He does not. He clears his throat, which is more dignified. I'm sorry, he says, to the shelves and the mop and the history. I should have smelled it sooner. You smelled it now, Khumalo says. We move. Return to the bright room. We take the minutes upstairs like a stretcher. The lime wash on the wall has dried into a chalk white sheet. The word string we wrote earlier is almost gone under the crust. The gut behind it is quieter. Acknowledged. Not forgiven. The ledger turns a page and writes in a hand that is not mine, and not mine. Name recovered. Crossing still unearned. Not tonight, I tell it, still gentle. We have enough mouths to feed. KWANDA stands where he stood yesterday, palm an inch from plaster, not touching, listening. The sun crack throws 1 thin branch of white toward his wrist, and then withdraws, like a tide that changed its mind. She abstained, he says. He doesn't say her name. He's talking to a wall that remembers his father's. She will answer for it to water, Khumalo says. Not to your bones. He nods as if he can make bone agree by being polite. Perhaps he can. He has that kind stubborn. Perimeter pass. At 1600, the drones do one more lazy map. Nandi 1 traces the rail. Nandi 2 sweeps the fence line. Bells jingle the way bells do when they have done their work and would like applause they will not receive. Filing hoppers cough politely at 3 corners and then behave. At the service gate, a white bakkie rolls up like deliveries do. The driver has a cap and a clipboard and the mouth of someone who will always smile first and talk last. The pass on his window looks real until Naidu taps it and the laminate gives wrong. Naledi, carrying a crate of chalk under supervision, is the one who does not like the look of it first. She stops with ruthless economy. "That pass was printed over a selfie," she says. "You can see the reflection of the man's phone in the laminate. Our cards don't do that." De Klerk materializes like an uninvited law and says, "Step out and open the back, please." The man does. The back is full of printer ink, laminating pouches, bracelet charms that look like river stones, and mask beads bought from a vendor a child could lie about. "Courier with a pretty face," Busi says, and does not apologize for the sentence. Khumalo takes a photo of the heap and then of the man's eyes. "Thank you," she says. "You may leave these with us. Someone will escort you to the road. If you come back, come with truth." He doesn't argue. He looks past our heads and makes a decision about nightfall. He goes. He is not our villain. He is a useful mouth for someone else's hands. Naledi does not cheer. She writes, "Not a mouth" on the gatepost and hands Busi a stick of chalk without being asked. I hate that I am grateful to her this neat. I am grateful anyway. Board and breathing. By late afternoon, the notice board is a spine with ribs. Archives, counsel exception. Minutes retrieved. P. Mokoena, abstained. Identified via witness micro unname, inside ring. Admin closet, string harp de-threaded, mask bead trap bagged. Service gate, courier intercepted. Charm laminate seized, workshop audit extended. Bright room wall. Second lime coat holds. Gut string quieter. No opening 7B. River, truth delivered when asked, name recovered, next ask pending. Underneath, for the ones who like to live by a paragraph. You are not clever, you are careful. Chalk is policy, milk is policy, lime is policy, bells are policy, boring is policy. We scatter, we eat, we wash dust off our hands. We pretend to listen to the radio in the kitchen while we actually listen to the building, deciding whether to be interesting before bed. The parley sits in my bones like warm milk. The name sits in the folder like a stone with corners. Mokoena. Present. Abstained. A person in a room who watched another person carry a knot and then did not sign their fear. At my door, I put the matchbox on the high shelf where it can stare at the ceiling. It stares back. The iron under my jaw is a line I drew and will need again tomorrow. The world feels solvable for 20 minutes at a time. On my threshold, KWANDA pauses the way he always does. One touch of presence and no more. "We have a receipt now," he says, voice like a room with lights on. "We do," I say, "and a river that keeps appointments." "We keep ours," he says. "We don't touch twice. We don't need to. The price holds. The day does not demand interest." We sleep facing the hall. The ledger sleeps with one page open. The drones hang their bells. The rails remember their elbows. The drains practice their no. The wall breathes like a thing deciding not to be a throat. Part 6. Receipts in the wall. End of episode. Evening puts a lid on the day without promising to keep the pot from boiling. The school smells like lime and milk and a breath that finally learned to sit. The notice board gets its last square of the shift. Stairs. All elbows cleared, rings removed, no grabbing policy stands. Workshop. Charm recall underway. Magnets banned near mask beads. Ruin assigned to unmaking. Second saboteur active. String harp. Archives. Counsel exception minutes retrieved. P. Mokoena abstained, identified. Ask River next truth. Sia. Perimeter. Courier intercepted. Laminates charm seized. Gate mouth. Bright room, second line code holding, gut string quieter, do not open 7B. Under it, Khumalo writes one sentence that fits how our day worked. A receipt is not a story, it's a weight. Carry it. We carry chairs to doorways and pretend we have time to be furniture. The drones hang with their bells off like saints after processions. I can feel the ledger turning an idea over like a stone in a pocket. The first trouble is polite. The fire alarm in the east corridor gives exactly 3 chirps and then thinks better. Polite trouble is never harmless. We run Registry East Bright because the map writes itself on our feet now. At the alarm panel, the indicator lights a thin orange line that isn't fire, isn't smoke, is pull. The kind of drag strings leave when they try to teach machines to be mouths. De Klerk already has Nandi 1 in the hallway. Bells on, streamer tied. The streamer leans toward the ceiling duct, then down to the pull station, then along the capping toward the bright room wall as if reason wore shoes. Ring, Busi says, chalk stubbing a circle round the pull station itself. If the room wants a hand, it can ask politely. I warn. Sipho lets smoke sit low so the sensor decides to relax. Thandi goes flat enough to make fluorescent tubes feel humble. KWANDA sets a mug a palm's width from the pull handle where a snap would love a face. We open the plastic cover the way you open a drawer in a grandmother's house. Inside, a hairline snub tied neatly to the spring, leading into the wall through a drilled hole no bigger than a bean. Whoever put it there expected panic hands to do the rest. Busi snips inside dust. Ping. The mug takes the sulk. The alarm reconsiders its life. We bag the line. We write on the cover in permanent marker. Not a mouth, ugly saves. Of Francense. Streamer still pulling. De Klerk says from the hall, eyes on the drone. He points with his chin. The streamer is not pointing at us anymore. It's pointing at the bright room wall. We go. The lime coat wears the day like a shirt that fits. The word string we scrawled earlier is now a palimpsest under 2 films of boring. But the wall is thinking. You can feel it under fingernails and in teeth. The way you feel a sound your ear can't name. Khumalo arrives with her hands empty on purpose. No clever, she says. We keep it square. We move the furniture like we've rehearsed it into our bones. Iron square on table, brass ring chalked on floor, panel dark and obedient, witness at the east of the inner circle. Sun on my right, earth north, water south, moon west, headmistress in the center like a door frame that will not apologize. On the lime, at eye height, a darker band worms under the paint from the cabinet that holds 7B to the conduit route we mapped with filings. Not a hair, not a pipe. Gut. Offer it a bowl, Nandi says. She means, let iron be the mouth, not the wall. KWANDA sets the cast iron bowl at the north point, upside down, the way we do when we teach holes their place. He plants the earth spike into the skirting gap and clips the ground line with that quiet click you hear when someone made the right choice twice in a row. Like, I put my jaw on the iron and warn. If I go outside, it will be ink only. No room, no breath, no skin. 3 counts. We wait for the wall to be honest. It chooses an almost. A voice that uses the rail and the conduits and the filings we spilled yesterday and the hum we taught the panel to hate. It isn't air. It's pressure-wearing sound. Boy. It says it like a man who used to be able to say a whole name and paid for it. KWANDA doesn't move. The sun crack along his radius hums a thread of white and then behaves. I'm here, he says, plain. Nye. The wall's tone goes old wire and rain. It tries to make me a door because my mouth is a bad habit. I put both hands on my own shoulders to remind skin who owns it. Receipt, the pressure says, not story. Khumalo lifts the folder just enough for the wall to see weight, not drama. have it, she says. Council exception. You're not. Designates say. The pressure hums in the lime like a cat behind thin plaster. Abstained. Mokwena, Thandi says, and it isn't a dare, it's an answer. The lime tightens a hairline from cabinet to conduit. It tries to be a mouth the width of a worm. Earth taps the trowel into the seam and makes a line of lime so thick and ugly even hunger has manners. Not a mouth, Busi says to the wall, loud and bored. The pressure backs off to a bad mood. I held, it says, the way a horizon says storm for a long time and then says Tuesday. I held until they forgot to pay. Then I held. It isn't bragging. It's a receipt.